I mean, ultimately, what's the point of having lots of money if you don't talk to your family? So to me, the most important things are family and time. The people that will be there on your deathbed will be your family.
For decades, Andy Gowers has helped families and business leaders protect what matters most: wealth and, most importantly, relationships.
My biggest tip when talking about succession is always use someone independent to help you. Because if you sit down as a family, the odds are it may not go well. The wealthiest people receive the best advice and they're prepared to pay for it. It's not a coincidence they're wealthy.
But his story doesn't stop at success. It is a story about resilience. From being a member of Hawthorn's 1991 AFL Premiership winning team to president of the Hawthorn Football Club, Andy has first-hand experience of the highs and lows athletes face on and off the field.
I was down with them. So the turning point for me, which I know, I finally agreed to work with the club psychologist. The person who started at the bottom, technically the bottom, and worked their way up, they always gain a lot of respect.
As the founder of Vest Advisory, Andy Gowers continues to lead with one simple belief.
I love helping people and transferring knowledge to other people.
Where big dreams meet bold action. Where we share real stories, actionable insights, and the inspiration needed to transform your ideas into businesses. Are you ready to turn your ideas into success and be an inspiration to others? Join Inspirepreneur.
So my name is Andy Gowers. I'm a business person and I'm also an administrator at one of the largest sporting clubs in Australia, the mighty Hawthorn Football Club, where I was a player in my youth and have returned to play a role on the board. My business activities include succession planning, so I work with two fantastic partners there, and we help business owners and families work their way through all kinds of succession issues. And I also have a business that helps people with what I call elite performance advice. So having had a lot of experience getting the most out of myself on the field, I'm now using some of the tools and the programs and the lessons that I've learned in that field and in business to help other business owners, executives, and some professional athletes make the most of what they're trying to achieve. So that's what I do.
And there is a lot in there, right?
Yes, there is.
And we want to unpack this a little bit more because there is so much knowledge and wisdom within that introduction. But I just want to tell everyone how we actually met. So I was on a flight. So I'll tell people my perspective. I was on a flight back from Sydney. I was running my own workshop in Sydney, a leadership workshop. And I wanted to catch an earlier flight because it wrapped up earlier. And there were no flights available. I think it was the Grand Prix. People were flying.
Was.
And it was just booked out. And I'm like, what am I going to do, in the lounge? But I just stuck it out for like 3-4 hours. And in that moment, I said to myself, there is a divine plan for some reason, right?
It's happening for a reason.
It's happening for a reason. And I'm that type of guy. And I just said, I'm just going to surrender and I'm just going to let it go with the flow. I jumped onto the plane and 10 minutes, I think, before the doors closed, my seats were empty. And I thought I was just going to have empty seats. And I'm like, how? Because the rest of the plane is full. And then all of a sudden, just before the doors closed, 2 people filled the chair. And we started talking. I started talking to his wife. His wife was sitting next to me, beautiful. And Andy as well was sitting next to her. And we just got talking, and then Andy introduced himself as a performance elite coach. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in performance and elite athletes too. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And I think one of the questions that you asked me was, do you follow the footy? Right? And I'm like, no. I don't
No,
follow
I
the
think
footy.
Anna asked you that. But
Yeah,
anyway,
someone, right? Someone asked the footy because I think
Yes.
she was like, you know, like you must know Andy, and I'm like, not that it was implied that way, but I don't follow the footy.
Mm.
And I said, no, I don't follow. And then, and I think because of that, it just felt like I was just talking to my next door neighbour.
Yeah.
Really,
You
really,
were.
yeah, right. Really, really nice, genuine, like beautiful people. I felt like I'd known them for years. And I was talking about what I did was I was helping people, athletes in performance. I came from leadership, and then helping athletes. And he was doing a similar thing as well. And it wasn't until I landed and we exchanged LinkedIn profiles in the end. And it wasn't until I landed when I was like, oh my gosh, I was just sitting next to the president of Hawthorn Football Club, right? And I was telling him how hard it was for me to get into the obstacles, into the AFL, and here I am complaining to the president of one of the football teams.
It is still hard.
And I'm like, what are the odds, right? How life, God put me sitting next to Andy, right? And I feel like we were meant to be there, right? I'm not sure what that means and how, but just building up this relationship is just amazing and learning a lot from him today. And it wasn't until I landed, I'm like, this guy was so humble, like available for me, had time to have a chat, having a laugh, him and his wife. I would never have known that, this person was the president of Hawthorn. And I just felt like this part of the segment is so important because it just gives you context about what I think and what I feel, what true leadership is and what it's all about. And, the person that we have sitting here, not just talks about what that is, and reads the books and tells people and teaches people, but he also lives it from first-hand experience. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome you here today.
Thanks, Graham. It's a very lovely introduction. Thank you. I am humbled by a beautiful introduction. I really am.
Thank you. So, first question. These are some questions that we sourced from public information.
Yep.
Your family's business collapse left lasting fractures, and now your career is building on preventing exactly that. What's the one lesson from that failure do you still see wealthy families ignoring today?
I think it's communication. I think leaving things unsaid.
In which context?
Well, take a family for example, and let's say I'll give you an example. So, say the parents give one child, say it's an adult child, some help.
Yes.
And whether that be financial or otherwise, they've helped that child. But there's no understanding amongst the other family members maybe there's an understanding of something has happened, but what exactly is not known. So naturally that leads to, well, what about me? He or she got the help. Are mum and dad going to help me in the same way? Right. Or does that sibling need more help than me? Or do I need more help than her or him? So naturally it can lead to friction and it can lead to tension. So things that are left unsaid or undealt with, I think is probably the biggest lesson. There are lots of other things that enter my mind when you ask me that question, but I think the number one thing, if you put a gun at my head and said, you've got to give the one thing,
yes,
it'd be communication. Make sure you communicate.
And people are probably thinking, what's that got to do with me being successful or happy? How does communication, I mean, obviously you know this and I know this, right? But for people are like, how does this change people's lives?
Well, human nature, and I'm not a trained psychologist or psychiatrist, but
you've lived it's lived experience.
Yeah, it is. And I've seen many, many times over on my father's side of the family, when I was a little boy included, the fractures as you described them that can occur when things are left unsaid and or undealt with. So, we in our succession business, Vest Advisory, we are big on let's get these things out into the open. Let's document what's happened. Let's make sure everybody understands, because that's the best way to handle it. We're talking about money. We're talking about family dynamics, quite often amongst siblings, but also intergenerational dynamics. And those are all heavy topics in their own right. But you throw them all in together, and it's a melting pot of possible blow-ups. And so there's a tendency to avoid talking about them because people don't want to rock the boat. And let's not go there. Let's enjoy the meal we're having together. Let's have that drink. Let's watch the footy. You won't watch the footy, but whatever you're into, we'll do that instead, because that's easier. And we don't have to go into that place there where something might happen and, we might end up in an argument. And that's a bit of a heavier topic. Let's talk about lighter topics. So I reckon that's a big part of it.
So you've got financial wealth, right? And it sounds and feels like that you're very family first.
I am family first.
That's
my values.
Yes.
Family man is number one.
Beautiful, right? And I can see that, and I love that too, right? And we can see that without family wealth, like open communication, do you feel like there is something lost? That the financial wealth doesn't really have much of a meaning then. Where if you gain the world, but at the same time you may lose communication, you lose a family, you lose like what you mentioned, like if I give attention to one sibling and not the other, then it all just falls apart.
Yeah, well, that's a risk. Yeah, definitely a risk. And I mean, ultimately, what's the point of having lots of money if you don't talk to your family? And I think it's such a simple question,
yes,
but I just don't see the point of wealth if you don't have to. So to me, the most important things are family and time. Make the most of your time, and some of that time, as much as you can, spend with the people that you love. Yes. The people that will be there on your deathbed will be your family. The people that see you through the hardest times in your life should be your family. And one of the reasons we set the succession planning business up was to help families avoid those blow-ups and to help them be happy, to help them to actually spend good time together. And one of our mottos is, we want to help your family want to spend time together. Now, whether it's a birthday or some kind of celebration or event, when mum and dad are no longer around to tell you to do it. There's a you feel that sense of responsibility when mum or dad says, now listen, Andy or Karim, we want you at the barbecue or the film night or the soccer game, whatever it is, or the birthday. You don't have to be told to do that. Families that are close and have great relationships, they all want to be there and they gather and they work it out and they do it naturally. But as we get older and the older generations are no longer with us, which is always sad, but inevitability, to have that family as close as ever, it would be a fantastic legacy to leave. If you take any field, they all involve hard conversations at some point. In a workplace, on the sporting field, any kind of organisation, any kind of group of people, sometimes you've got to have a hard conversation, or what might seem like a hard conversation, one you don't really want to have. When you're raising kids, do you have kids? Three kids, there you go. Yeah. Now and then you've got to tell them, you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. That's not on. You've got to teach them the ropes. That's a hard conversation. There are many examples. As you get older and you're an adult and so on, and you might need to go to a heavier topic. Do you want to sweep it under the rug and let it fester? Because it will fester. It will come out at some point. Yeah. Or do you want to deal with it, as hard as it might seem at the time, deal with it, resolve it, and then move on, and then everyone's in a better position. I know what I prefer to do.
100%. In your experience, what destroys more wealth? Poor structuring or unresolved family psychology?
I was going to say 100% the latter, but maybe not that high a percentage, but almost always the latter. it's the things that are not said. I'm sort of repeating myself to a degree, but the structuring can reflect what you want to happen, but it's getting to what you want to happen. That's the nub of it. So, and that's the hard bit.
So, Andy, like, what is the unspoken thing? Because I want, like, people talk about tax and it's so boring, and structure and trusts. What are things that you are here?
Examples of things that are unsaid that cause issues. Well, I gave you one before about you might a family might give a loan. So the bank of mum and dad, statistically, is between the 5th and 9th largest lender in the country. The bank of mum and dad.
Wow.
We've just released a newsletter talking about this very point, and we've done we did a seminar on it, a live seminar.
Okay.
So let's think about that as a stat. So between the 5th and 9th largest lender in the country. So that means a lot of money is going from one generation to the next, typically to help them buy a house, because houses are expensive.
Yes.
That's the typical example. Now, if that has happened, firstly, is it a loan or is it a gift? The loan was given at this point in time to buy a house worth this.
Yes.
Let's fast forward 15 years, and let's say there are 2 siblings in the family.
Yes.
One sibling was given a hand then because they needed a hand. The other one was okay.
Yeah.
But it was never squared up. So that could be a big ticking time bomb for that family, because the other sibling who didn't get the bank of mum and dad help, maybe their circumstances have changed. Maybe they've gone through a divorce. Maybe their wealth situation has changed. And they say to mum and dad, if they're still alive, well, you helped, Bob 15 years ago.
You gave them $1 million.
You gave them $1 million.
You gave Mary another $1 million, or maybe.
And I didn't get anything because you thought I didn't need the help, and that was probably right at the time.
Yes.
But now I do. But that $1 million 15 years ago is now worth 2.8. The house that Bob bought was bought, say, I don't know, $1.5 million.
Yes.
It's skyrocketed in value, is now worth 18.
Right.
So how do you treat that sibling who's raising this as an issue fairly?
Yes.
And one of the things we always, or often, not always, but often say is it doesn't have to be equal to be fair. So sometimes often, siblings are in different circumstances. One sibling needs a bit more help than the others. And so what's fair? And, you might find that the siblings who are in a better financial, I'm focusing on financial here for the moment, say they're in a really good financial position, but one sibling isn't. When talking about the inheritance, so the will, the estate, maybe it's fair for mum and dad to look after the sibling who's not doing so well financially in a bigger way. And all the siblings say, yeah, that's fair, because we're all fine, and that sibling needs more help. So we're all very comfortable with that. But if you don't have the discussion, that can brew. That can breed discontent. It's unsaid. The sibling who needs a hand more may not feel confident in asking for more, or may not even feel comfortable about taking more. But if their siblings say, no, Karim, you're struggling, we're doing fine, we're really happy for you to have this much more than us, and that'll help you do what you need to do to live the life you want to live. We're all very happy with that. How do you reckon that sibling feels when he or she gets told that? They'll feel great about that, as long as they're accepting of it and not feeling embarrassed and stuff. But if it's handled properly and with heart driving the decision making, sure, the brain's got to come into it. So I would say the latter part of your question is the heart, and the former part of your question is the head. So the structuring and so on, that needs to be done.
Yes.
And when you use the word structuring, what comes into my mind are tax structures, documentation, legal structures, making sure you can minimise your tax on the way through. You don't want to pay more than you have to, all that sort of stuff. So you definitely need that more technical help. The bit that we focus on, so we don't give tax advice, accounting advice, wealth management advice. We don't give legal advice. We give advice to our clients on how to be fair about things. So those questions that you currently haven't answered, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we can help you make some decisions on those, and then you can talk to your lawyers and your accountants and your wealth managers about the structures that you need. Now, another good example of that is take wealth again, and let's say, so one thing we're big on is philanthropy. Why? Because it's great for society. The kinds of clients we're dealing with typically have, a good amount of money, in some cases a lot of money, and so a lot of them do feel like it's the right thing to do to give back to society. So they're actually helping society. It's good for their children to see the fact that they're helping society. The other thing that happens with it is it's very uniting. Whether you are all on the same page with respect to which causes you want to support or not doesn't seem to matter. The fact that you are being philanthropic together is a very uniting thing in itself. So having done all of that and agreed, yes, we want to be philanthropic, then you turn your attention to how would we do it. So you might need to start up a foundation. That's where the structuring comes in. So the hard part of it, the human side of it is, yes, we want to be more giving. We've done well. We want to show our kids that we want to help society, and we're a generous family, and we're never going to be able to spend all the money that we've made. So let's help those who are less fortunate. Let's help those who may need a hand in terms of wellness or the economy, not the economy, green, helping the world be more green, or whether it's Indigenous affairs, or whatever the cause is that you're most passionate about. Doesn't seem to matter what they are. It's more the fact that we can help society be better. We're in a good position to do it. And guess what? Our kids can learn, our grandkids can learn. This is what we do, and this is how we do it. So that's how we approach it.
I love that. I love that. Because it changes their dynamic and it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I love that.
Yeah.
You sold Time Advice after building it for more than a decade in 2021.
Yeah.
As a founder, what did the exit teach you about letting go and the emotional side of succession?
So my former business partner, Anuj Shangle, and I sold the business in 2021, as you said. We sold it together. And I reckon the biggest lesson I learnt there, well, there were a few lessons. One of them was be organised. And I can put my hand on my heart, not too close to my microphone, and say the fact that we were organised was nearly all because of Anuj's organisation and his skill set in having what's called your data room ready for would-be buyers to have a look at. Right. So he had all of that organised and some key staff members. They had that data room looking incredibly professional. So hats off to them, and I'll always be grateful for that. I think another big lesson that I learnt from that process was initially it's very hard to know who might be the eventual acquirer of your business. And because you think, this business could be bought by any one of them, I'd be comfortable with any of them. But then you get into deeper conversations and they ask you questions and you answer them and you ask them questions and vice versa. And there's a to and fro between you, and you become surer about whether they're an appropriate buyer or not. And they become surer about whether they want to acquire you or not.
Yeah.
And so you do this dance and you get to a point after a bit of time where you're really getting to know each other. Separately, they look at the numbers and they work out whether that is something that's appealing to them. Mm-hmm. But presuming they're interested in what it says in the data room and what we're saying verbally to them, you get to a point where you get pretty close to knowing, who might be the eventual acquirer, or certainly, I think in our case, we got down to 2. And then ultimately, the way that I thought about it was the firm that is going to look after our clients the best, the ones that I feel most comfortable will do that, I think they would be the best acquirer. And effectively, that's what happened. Well, not effectively. that is what happened. So as it turned out, the firm that bought us, which is Cranage Financial Group, I happened to play some football with Ben Cranage years prior. And in fact, a bit like you and I bumping into each other on the plane or meeting on the plane, I had been at a 20-year premiership reunion of that team that I played with Ben Cranage in, the Odds of Variance. And so we'd seen each other about 3 months prior to him finding out that my business was for sale, or our business was for sale. And he rang me and said, I've got his number in my phone. And he rings me and I answer. And he says, is your business for sale? I said, it is. Are you interested in buying it? He said, I am. And my immediate reaction and the words that came out of my mouth were, oh, that could be fantastic. Why? Because I knew he's a great person. Wow. And I knew that I could trust. So a lot of those clients are family members, close friends, clients that became friends, referrals from friends, referrals from clients, and so on. And I think it was a number around about that scale. Mm-hmm. But we were close, or I felt close to all of them. So I wanted to make sure that they were going to a good home. And so in terms of succession, we spent, Anuj and I spent 12 months together handing those clients over properly to Cranage and being part of the furniture. And then I spent another, I think it was 4 or 5 months in a role beyond that, working with the Cranage Group. But then in the end, I wanted to specialise in succession myself. So I decided to start up a succession business from scratch. Mm-hmm. And that's where I met I ended up meeting my partners, David and Michael Naftali, through an article in the Fin Review. So I was reading an article on the lack of succession planning with some of the highest profile families in the country. And Michael Naftali was heavily quoted in this article. And I thought, gosh, he makes so much sense, this guy. I loved what he had to say in the article. And so much so, I posted the article on my LinkedIn feed. I took out one of his quotes and I highlighted that. And then I contacted him and suggested that we have a chat. I said, look, I hope you don't mind, but I've highlighted one of your quotes from that great article that you were heavily quoted in, because I loved the article so much and I'm really interested in that field and I've done a bit of it, but I want to do more of it. And look, I'll cut a really long story short for the purposes of this discussion. And we agreed to go into business about a year later.
Wow.
Yeah, so we took our time making sure it was the right move for Michael, his son David, and me. Mm-hmm. David's, without aging him, he's slightly younger than me, but we're roughly the same generation. Okay. And Michael is David's dad. So it's a good combination because we've got different skill sets. We represent 2 different generations. Michael, I think, can talk, with great authority with, generation 1. And David and I are more generation 2. Yeah. And, David and I have kids who are generation 3. So I suppose we're able to relate to all 3 generations if and when we need to. And often we are dealing with families that have that many generations, sometimes more, sometimes less. But it's good to be able to have that flexibility.
You mentioned generations, right? What has your experience been with wealth and money growing up as a child? Were you middle class? Were you perceived middle class? Were you humble beginnings? Were your parents okay?
Look, my parents were, I would describe us as middle class. So I went to a private school, but mum and dad worked very hard to send me there.
Right.
So I felt very lucky to be there, and I knew that at times it was a stretch for mum and dad without giving away confidences. It was, and it was a fantastic. Well, firstly, it was a fantastic environment for me. Yes. I absolutely loved it. I never loved the schoolwork. For me, I was not academically minded at that age. I became academically minded literally in the last year of my undergraduate degree, my marketing degree. I got the learning bug. I got the learning bug in my last year. So going back to my family upbringing, so it was. I didn't want for anything really, but I know mum and dad worked very hard to give me, that upbringing. Was very lucky to go to a fantastic school. And the biggest lesson I learned at that school, even though I'm saying I focused on sport and mates, and we did a lot of, social awareness work at school, where we'd go out to, for example, schools with, physical and intellectual disabilities. We'd go out to aged care homes. We would go out and visit people in the neighbourhood near the school and help them on a Friday afternoon with just stuff they needed help with. Someone who might have been a widow or a widower who, didn't have much company, we might go and spend 2 hours with them on a Friday afternoon or a Friday night. Cup of, I don't drink tea, but cup of soft drink or water or what have you, and just a chin wag, just to give someone a bit of company. So as I get older, so I'm 57 now. As I become a middle-aged man, I spend more time reflecting on some of the lessons that you pick up, when you're younger, and how it's helped form the person that I've become now.
Yes.
And I think that, and I actually spoke about this. We've just celebrated our 40-year reunion of my last year at school, and I got interviewed by one of our schoolmates who had a large media career, a guy called Dan Lonigan. So he interviewed a few people, and I was one of them. And I made a comment at the end of it, and to go to your point about my upbringing, I said, for some of us in this room, our parents, it wasn't easy for them to send us here. Some, more than others. And I said, the man for others motto that we've all been taught, and I think a lot of us live our lives by, is something that is certainly not lost on me, and I know I'm sure it's not lost on any of us. But it's really informed the way that I go about what I do, and I think about it a lot. And I think it was probably, ingrained in my psyche, ingrained in my subconscious maybe. And as I'm becoming more reflective and transferring knowledge to other people, I love helping people, and that's being a man for others in a way. It's in a way of speaking. So I'm so grateful for that upbringing. I really am. And I spend more and more time being grateful for it. So yeah, it was a terrific upbringing. One brother, one younger brother, and so not a big family, but both of us ended up at Xavier. And mates, sport, yes, the work side of it set me up. I went to uni. I didn't brain it in year 12, but I did well enough to get to uni, and I ended up doing the course I wanted, which was marketing. Not initially, I didn't get the marks to get into marketing, but did part of an arts degree, did a minor in psychology and almost a major in politics. Transferred across to marketing because I figured I don't know what I want to do exactly, but I want to own my own business. So if I'm going to own my own business, it's going to need marketing. It's going to need sales. I'm going to get into that because whatever it is, that will be helpful. And my late father was, at the time, he was a sales manager at IBM, and he was a sales and marketing guy. So it was sort of in the genes. And so I went down that pathway and never regretted it for a second.
I love that.
It's a long answer to your question.
No, it's good because it gives context. And I love that you said, because people from the outside watching you, they can build up a story, right?
Sure.
They can say that he was spoon-fed.
Yep.
He was given, millions and millions of dollars. He was
I wish.
Pathed, right? He was given the path. His parents gave him everything. But you telling your story, I want to inspire others, right? People that are maybe they're young, right? They're starting off.
Yep.
They don't have the same opportunities like their other friends. With wealthier families.
Yep.
People living older today that have just failed in a business.
Yep.
Right? And they're thinking, I'm screwed. I failed and that's it. I'm done. At what point in that moment, how you said that you were you weren't very academic. At what point did that switch for you? Because it sounds like there was a moment in time. Maybe it was how you perceived your mum and dad. They're working so hard for you to give.
Mm.
You're wanting to give to others, and then you're just wanting to absorb and learn. I'm not sure what that moment is for you.
Mm.
And other people have those moments too.
Yep.
What was that moment for you where you're like, I'm going to switch this all around.
Mm.
I'm going to love to learn. I just want to drive your, you know, like what was that moment for you that you're like, it's game on.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do. You obviously did really well in footy, you know,
Yep.
for you to,
Yes.
you know, play for Hawthorn and
Yep.
then, you know, work in the exec.
Mm.
People think that was all just luck and it
talent.
was talent.
Yeah.
What was that moment for you that just flipped everything?
Yeah.
That we could help inspire others?
Sure. Well, Karim, there wasn't one moment. And I think I'm still experiencing moments.
Right.
I'm still being inspired myself by all kinds of people. I'm inspired by you, what you're doing. And I'm big on you can learn from everybody. I've learned a lot from my kids. I'm learning now from my grandkids. I've got 2 little grandkids who are 5 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn from people who don't like you, who don't agree with the way you do things. You can learn from public figures that you may never meet, but you can watch the way they lead. You can watch the way they communicate. You can watch the way they handle crises. From a clicking of the switch or flicking of the switch point of view, I definitely had a key moment at uni, as I described in my last year of my degree, because I think my mindset was, well, I'm about to graduate. I'm about to finish off this course. What am I going to do? But I was also deep into my football career. So this is 1994, to put it in perspective. And I still had another, beyond that, what ended up being another 5 years of a 12-year AFL career to go. So I considered myself smack bang in the middle of what I hoped to be a 15-year career. So there was an element of, and remember at that point, football was not full-time and it wasn't highly paid. So I ended up being well paid towards the end of my career, but football was only full-time in my last year, in 1999.
Interesting.
Before that, it was part-time. So I always studied and or worked all the way through my footy career.
Right.
So there, as I'm explaining, there were and are a number of moments. So yeah, that moment at uni.
Was there a moment where you were like, because I think people can resonate with this. Was there a moment where you're like, I'm lost?
I've been lost many times.
Right? And these are the things that, because people think that they have to have everything sorted out.
Yeah.
How did you get out of that moment? Maybe pick the biggest time when you were like down at the dumps.
Yeah. I was down in the dumps. So I was down in the dumps when I was playing with Hawthorn. So I won't go into massive detail, but let's just say I was not happy at all with my life.
Right.
My relationship with my now wife.
Yes.
My then partner.
Yes.
We'd already had our first child at this point. So we were on again, off again.
Yes.
So we had a number of breaks. My footy career wasn't going the way I wanted to. So this was in 1990 that I had a bit of I wouldn't describe it as an epiphany. I would describe it as a down in the dumps moment and a fork in the road moment.
Yes.
Right? There's a fork in the road moment.
Yes.
So relationship, wasn't happy with that. I knew we were destined to be together.
Yes.
But it wasn't, we were just not on the best of terms. And I knew we could be on the best of terms and I wasn't happy with that.
Yes.
My football career wasn't going the way I wanted it to. So 1990, I'd missed 2 premierships, 1988 and 1989. So they were my first 2 years at Hawthorn. So I missed out on those flags. Combination of things. Injuries definitely played a part, but wasn't the only reason. Wasn't getting selected, injured, not playing well enough to knock down the door. It was a very difficult team to break into, but that's no excuse. I broke into it in my first year, and I had a spot, and then I lost the spot because I did my shoulder just before the finals, and then a series of events, and I just wasn't getting a regular senior game, and frankly didn't deserve a regular senior game in 1990. Study-wise, I was coasting through at uni. You know, now I look back and I think, oh, it wasn't an issue, but at the time, I was failing the odd subject. I was deferring. I wasn't doing as well as I should have been in the subjects I was, interested in. So I was coasting through uni, so I suppose I wasn't all that happy with that. I wasn't living the lifestyle that I should have been in terms of maximising my life, let alone footy, which, should have been a priority. So I mean, not necessarily food, but I was probably, partying too much, and so on. So I was down in the dumps. I didn't have depression. I just didn't feel that life was going the way it should have been for me. So the turning point for me,
Yes,
which I know. So fork in the road. I'm at the fork in the road. I'm not feeling good.
yes,
The fork in the road for me was, or the movement down the positive pathway was,
yes.
I finally agreed to work with the club psychologist.
What was that moment? Right, because you could have decided either way.
Yeah, I'm down the dumps, and I thought, you know what? I've avoided this guy, and I'm seeing some guys who are getting good results with him, and I thought I don't need that. I don't need that kind of help.
Yes.
I don't have a problem. I'm not a head case.
Yes.
So there was those
Yes.
negative voices in my head saying, you don't need help there.
Yes.
You're fine. You'll work your way through it. You're talented. You're smart. Blah blah blah. You don't need to work with him. But the realist in me was saying, well, hang on. Why wouldn't you just try it? Because things aren't going well when not doing it. So why wouldn't you just go and have a meeting? What have you got to lose?
Yes.
Now, this is an internal dialogue in my head.
Yes.
So I went to meet, and his name is Anthony Stewart.
Okay.
A brilliant, brilliant person and wonderful person. So, mea culpa, I turned up for my first appointment.
How old were you then?
I was 21.
Okay.
So I walked through the door of his practice, and he asks me a very simple and beautiful question. How come you're here? Why are you here? And I said, because I don't feel good about the way my life is going, and I've avoided you, and I'm seeing other people who are getting good results, and I don't think there's a good reason really for avoiding you, and I figure it's worth a try, and I'd like to tell you, what's going through my head, and I'd really like to hear your views, whether you think you can help me. So he got me to do an exercise at the end of me telling him a broader version of what I just described to you, why I was down the dumps.
Yes.
He said, all right, I want you to buy yourself a blank book, and I want you to write at the top of a number of pages, however many pages you like, the area of your life that you're not happy about. Your relationship with Anna, uni, footy, everything, just as a topic. And then I want you to list all the things about that you are not happy about. And then come back. So I did that. I came back, and he's reading through it, and he's going, yep, all right, good. And he said, all right, he said, I think what you're doing is when it comes, he said, let's just focus on football for the moment. He said, so these are all the reasons why you're unhappy. The coach, you don't think the coach likes you, you keep getting injured, you're not in a senior team, you've missed out on 2 premierships, etc. And he said, what I think you are doing is I think you are asking yourself negative questions like, why doesn't the coach like you? How come you keep getting injured? How come or why have I missed 2 premierships? Maybe I'm not ever going to play in a premiership. And that's just an internal dialogue. And I'm saying, I'm nodding as he's telling me, I'm going, that's exactly what I'm doing. And he said, all right, I've got another exercise for you. This time, I want you to start on some new pages, and I want you to write the same topics, and I want you to change the question. So, coach, premiership, all those things, flip the question. Don't ask, why does the coach hate you? Ask, what do I have to do so the coach loves me? Flip the question on everything that you're thinking about. So I did that, and I came back, and he said, this is fantastic. Because he said, your brain has all the answers. You just need to ask it the right questions. He said, it's like a computer. If you put the wrong question in, the wrong answers will spit out, and vice versa. So what he effectively taught me to do was to have a better dialogue with myself, which is the most important conversation you ever have. So he effectively taught me how to journal. So I've journaled fairly consistently since that day. So I keep I keep journals. My bag's over there. There's one in there. I write it. And look, people say to me, "What, you write it every day?" And I say, "No, I don't write it in every day. I should." But the reality is, the more I write in it, the better life goes for me.
Interesting.
So, and it's, you know, it's getting a lot of stuff out of this cranium here, physically through my arm, through a pen. Really important. I mean, you can capture stuff electronically, but the science apparently shows there's way more effective. It's way more effective when you write it.
Yes.
When you actually physically write it, you retain more of that process, and it's a stronger act. So you're more likely to have better results if you write, if you physically write. Plus, you've got a great catalogue of your life. You can go back and say, "Oh, I remember when I was dealing with that." And my best example of the power of journaling is a long time ago. I was beyond the final stage of buying a business. I won't say too much about it, but other than to say it was in a sport adjacent field. And I was so excited about this business. I loved the person who was selling it to me. I loved the clients that I was going to be working with. I had finance organised. I had a joint venture partner that was all in with me. And I thought it was going to be revolutionary, and the things we were going to do were going to be amazing. And they probably would have been. And then signed the contract, calling off period or not, I can't remember. But basically the deal was done. Everything was about to happen. And then the principal of the business rang me and said, "Look, I've got really bad news for you." He said, "You can sue me. I'm totally exposed here, but I don't want to sell you my business. I just can't do it." He said, "It's not you. It's 100% me. I want to hang in there. I've thought about it. I can't. These clients are like, you know, children to me." And this guy actually didn't have any children. And I just sighed into the phone and I said, "Look, I'm so disappointed, but of course I'm not going to sue you. You know, you've got your reasons and I completely respect them. Wasn't meant to be. And, you know, basically all the best. And it's been lovely getting to know you. And, you know, I'd love to catch up again and all that sort of stuff. And I wish you all the best." So I hang up the phone and I go out to speak to Anna and I said, "You're not going to believe what's just happened." And she was so disappointed as I was. And I moped around for a few hours and I just felt so, you know, talk about down in the dumps. I was just shattered. I was absolutely shattered.
Yes.
Anyway, I thought, all right, what can I do about this? Right. So I went and grabbed my journal. And I opened up a fresh page and I wrote at the top, I'll never forget this, "What is good about me not buying this business?" Question mark, underlined, in capitals. And I came up with 37 reasons.
Wow.
And these reasons why it was good that I didn't buy it, they flowed out of my brain so easily, so quickly. I was rushing to finish one point to get to the next point, and it flowed out of my brain, down my arm, through my hand and the pen onto the page, and it was across 2 pages, almost 2. I closed my journal, I put it in my bag. I went and found Anna and I said, "Guess what I've just done?" And I told her what I'd done. And I said, "I am so glad.
Dude, I'm
not buying this business." It was incredible. So going back to, I know you touched on this before, to those people who might be watching or listening to this and thinking, you know, I haven't had advantages in life, or, you know, I've maybe had some battles or some troubles or some challenges or what have you. I'm a massive believer in life is what you make of it. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it.
Yes.
And I reckon that was an example. It was a prime example in my life where something technically bad happened to me, and in my own head I flipped the narrative, like I'd been trained to do by the club psychologist, who I was very fortunate to have access to because I was good at footy. That's why I got to work with.
What was the benefit of what is happening to me right now?
So where's the benefit? Where's the silver lining?
Yes.
There's always a silver lining.
Yes.
When my football career ended, my professional football career ended, that was a hard moment. but it opened up all these other opportunities. I came back to Melbourne, where all our family live. None of our family lived in Queensland. They all lived in Melbourne. I don't have to list all the benefits of that, but one door closes, sometimes multiple doors open. And if you look at it through that lens, you are more likely to take advantage of those opportunities that, you might have to unearth the opportunity. It may not be obvious, but by having that attitude, I think having an open attitude and having the growth mindset, I know that gets talked about a lot, that term,
Yes.
but that term is so important. Having a growth mindset. Where's the growth opportunity?
Yes. And I love how you've given the audience tangible thing to do. Like, it's not just think positive or have a growth mindset. You've given people something tangible that you've done, right, when you were 21. Yeah. Right?
Very young.
Very young.
Immature. But thankfully got provided because I was good at footy. And this is why. So I train people now and help people now. Journaling is one part of it, but I help people now with what I call elite performance advice. How do you have the life that you want to live? Well, you've got to think of life through an elite performance lens. That's what you do when you're an elite sports person. That's what you do when you're a high-end executive. That's what you do when you're in a public profile. You have to perform at an elite level. So what are some of the tools that you can access? And some of them are really simple. They may not be easy, but they're simple to implement. And part of it is getting into the right kind of habits. Doing consistently the things that you need to do to stay focused and to stay on track. So I love transferring those kinds of things that I've learned. And one of the reasons I love doing it is because I was very fortunate. You talked about my upbringing. That's part of my upbringing. I got the upbringing at Hawthorn Football Club when I was a young, immature, very skinny, kid, really, very, young adult. Yeah. I got exposed to the best of the best. If I wasn't performing to the best of my ability on the field, I got the help that I needed, whether it was a busted shoulder or needed some help refining the way I was thinking about things. Whatever I needed, I got the help that I needed because I had to perform at the elite level on the field. So my off-field life, I needed to get organised, and that's a great lesson for anyone.
But I also think that you've made the decision to get help. A lot of people, right? And I think it's
a really good point.
Right? Because I think people right now, especially entrepreneurs, right? Yep. Business owners, our strength is
we can do it.
We can do it, grind through it.
Just watch me.
She'll be right attitude, right?
Yep, which is good.
At a certain point.
Yes.
Right? What differs from those kinds of people to the ultra successful are that there is these moments, these micro moments in their life where they make a decision and they say to themselves, I need help.
Yep. Okay, can I give you an example?
Please.
So you deal with athletes.
Yes.
And I do too, and I've been one. When thinking about performance.
Yeah.
And seeking help and being willing to be helped by others. Yeah. In order to launch to a higher level or levels is Roger Federer.
Right.
So Roger Federer, not even arguably, one of the best tennis players of all time. And if we pick a modern example, so Novak Djokovic is still playing. So let's look at Djokovic. So Djokovic, when he's playing the Wimbledon final, and he'll look up at his players' box, as the players often do during the box. Who's in that box? Who are the people in his world who are helping him be elite on the court? In Novak's case, his wife and kids would be there, typically. His agent, his manager, his hit-up partner. He might have have his tennis coach. He might have his accountant. He might have his wealth manager. He might have his lawyer. He might have a really close friend. He might have a psychologist. A mix of people. Now, he would, in some cases, so not his wife and kids, but nearly everybody else would be paid a fee along the way because they're part of Team Djokovic. Now, that's an extreme example because he's earning millions of dollars a year, right? But in the example of an everyday person, say, an accountant, a wealth manager, a lawyer, but a performance coach, someone like your very good self, someone like me, to take your life to the level that you wanted to, the investment in that kind of help pays for itself many times over, and it should. So one of the lessons that I learned from watching elite sports people and business people and high profile people is they put a good team of people around themselves and they pay them. People who, so, you know, before we touched on wealth in families and so on, but the wealthiest people receive the best advice and they're prepared to pay for it. It's not a coincidence they're wealthy. I keep using the term life. Now, life is comprised of many different areas. And I think that the wheel of life is a great metaphor, an analogy for, I reckon, the way that we should live, which is get each area of your life humming as well as you can. And if you need help, get it. And make sure that you are humming in every area. And that way, your wheel will roll as freely as possible. And you'll be living what I describe as your most remarkable life. I think one of our biggest fears is being unremarkable and getting to the end of our life and looking back on your deathbed. I've talked about that. I touched on it before, and having regrets and thinking, my life wasn't that remarkable really. But to be able to look back, hopefully in a long period of time, decades away from now, and think, you know what, I actually did some really amazing things. I'm surrounded by my family who are all still great mates, and look at this incredible family. And hopefully by then I'll have great grandchildren. And you know, you do think more about your legacy as you get older. You don't think about it much when you're in your 20s and your 30s so much, but I'm now in my, you know, approaching my late 50s, and I'm thinking more about legacy, and I'm dealing with, or not just me, but we're dealing more with families and businesses and even Hawthorn to a degree. We're dealing with legacy. What's the club going to look like after we're not involved? What does my family look like when I'm not here? What does the world that I interacted with look like when I'm no longer, you know, having an impact on it? What outcomes do I want for the various parts of my life? So some of those are quite big questions, but I reckon they're the most worthwhile ones. And that's what I'm, you know, trying to spend the most amount of my time and energy on, working on those sorts of challenges and incredible opportunities.
And I love how you said that the difference that you see in those that are successful are the ones that have a team around them.
Yeah.
What I find is that what separates someone that is grinding and that is exhausted and burnt out, they see themselves as the warrior, the lonely warrior.
Yep.
The people that have that team around them, they're like kings.
Yep.
They have their generals.
Yep.
They have their best advisors.
Yep.
And so when you frame it that way, it's like, I want to be a king too. Well, ask.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Be that person. Like, people, like, asking for help is often seen as a weakness.
Yeah.
Right? And I loved how you
It's the opposite. It seriously is the opposite.
Yes.
Being prepared to seek help is a sign of strength.
Yeah.
Really is.
You've lived through both elite sport pressure and family business succession disaster. Which is actually harder, the locker room or the family boardroom?
I think the family boardroom is harder because you love those people. And you know, the great line out of Succession, I love you, but you are not serious people. That's to me the funniest and the most poignant line in the whole series. And I bet Will Ferrell wrote that, by the way. But yeah, I think the family one is the hardest. You love each other. You've always got that connection. You'll always be related. You won't always spend time with your old teammates. And look, there are some teammates that you're not that close to. They're just teammates. You happen to be thrown in together. You know, they're contracted. They're great players, but you're not really close friends. You warm to some players more than others, and that's just normal. It's the same in a workplace. Yes. You know, there are some work colleagues that you get along better than others. So I think the family relationships are if things were to break down there, that would affect most people more deeply than within the locker room. I mean, within the locker room, you tend to be able to resolve things fairly quickly if things do break down anyway, because you have what's known as an honest and frank and transparent discussion. And you bring things to a head, and you sit around in a room, and I've been involved in quite a few, and I had a great example in Brisbane with Robert Walls, the late Robert Walls, who was a great guy. And we weren't playing well. We'd won, so this is in 1995, we'd won 4 games out of 15. So we were 4 wins, 11 losses. And he said to us, he just told us that his contract wasn't being extended. And so he was coaching the year out, which was 7 home and away games left. And he said, how many games do you think we could win? He said, I'm not being recontracted. This is it. We've got 7 home and away games. How many do you think we can win? There was silence. It seemed like a minute, but it could have been 10 or 15 seconds, which is a long time, with nothing being said by anybody. And a guy by the name of Andrew Buse, former Geelong captain, senior player at Brisbane, he stood up and said, I won't throw the swear words in. We can win all 7. And Wolsey, a big grin appeared on his face, and he said, I was hoping someone would say that. And he said, and this is where the open and transparent and frank discussion comes in, he said, all right, I think we can too, but we've got to face facts. We're playing very ordinary football. Why? What's going wrong? What can I do better? What can we do better? How can we win? We've got to come up with a plan. So we started giving him feedback about, we felt that he was coaching us in quite a negative way. He was criticising us, whereas we wanted more support and more encouragement. And we wanted encouragement to take more risk and to support our teammate. So I'll give you an example. So let's say you were closer to goal than me. I reckon before we had this sort of powwow, the player who wouldn't necessarily share it with the person in the best position, because it was more about, I'll get the goal for myself, or I won't leave my opponent to help you. You can handle him. I'm making sure I'm not going to get criticised for leaving my opponent in case my opponent gets the ball. So we gave that feedback, and we said, we want more licence to be attacking. We want more licence to help our teammate and take some risks. And you know what? If we take a risk and it doesn't come off, why don't you send the runner out and give us a pat on the back and saying, saw what you tried to do, that's great, keep it up. And we lived it, we breathed it, we implemented it, and we won 6 out of 7. So we lost 1 game by not much to Carlton, who, this is 1995, an amazing side, and they went on to win the Premiership.
Wow.
Now we played them again in the finals, the first week of the finals. That was the old system where it first played 8th, and we finished 8th, just on percentage. So we scraped into the finals, and we nearly beat them. And no one else got near them. They whacked everybody in the finals and in the grand final. But we learned a really good lesson, which is, and that has stuck with me ever since, make your teammate the best player. So in business, I often talk about this in business circles. Business isn't as good at this as sport is. Sport is really good. The best sporting teams are really good at making the teammate the best player for the benefit of the team. Business is not so good at, Karim, we want you to sacrifice X for the team, the business team, so that the company, the business, does better, performs better. Karim may not be as willing to take that personal sacrifice for the benefit of the team, in my experience.
Andy, you coach CEOs on elite performance. What leadership weakness is more common? Is it the fear of conflict or addiction to control? Or is it something else?
No, I think it's more the latter. I think, so the best leaders that I've observed, I think one of their great skills is identifying the best people for the right roles, and then let them lead. Right. So I think leadership is more about empowering than it is about showing. And I reckon the best leaders that I've seen in operation are fantastic at empowering people, giving them the agency, giving them the spotlight, giving them the tools that they need to perform and do what they need to do to lead their team or teams. So getting the right people, and that's part of the skill of a leader too, is to actually identify or have a process to identify the right kind of leader, for the team or the various teams technically underneath them. If you put the organisation first, normally what has to happen becomes fairly obvious. But most people, I don't know that most people put the organisation first.
Right.
And what's interesting, I think, you put the organisation first and you actually benefit as well. It sounds counterintuitive.
How?
Because the organisation will perform better.
Why?
Because you're making the decisions based on what's best for it,
right.
and everything flows down from that.
Yes.
So if I focus on a football club,
yes.
if you put it first, you just make sure you have the best people in the right roles, and then, as I said before, empower them. The club will be better. It'll be better off. It sounds really simple, and it is a simple concept. It's a bit harder in practice to implement, but it's the same in business. To put the business first, you need to have faith that the business is doing something worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
So the business needs to have a really good purpose. And not every business has worked out or stated or maybe visits enough their actual purpose. So is it an inspiring purpose? I mean, if it's just to make more money, that's not very inspiring unless it's the business owner and he or she is counting their bank account. That's not a very inspiring message. Yeah. But if it's because we're going to help X number of people improve their lives in this area, I think it's a really important thing for people to arrive at individually. So clubs have their purpose, organisations have their purpose, religions have their purpose, and so on. Mm-hmm. But as individuals, it's great to have a purpose. So what's your reason for being? So I read an amazing book, which I'm sure you're all over, called Ikigai, the Japanese concept. And the translation is reason for being. Mm-hmm. What is your reason for being? There's another great book, The Meaning, is it The Meaning of Life? I know that's a film, but to work out why are we here? I mean, apparently the odds of any of us being alive and on the planet now are so small. For you to be born at all is a miracle.
Yes. And
then to have the lives to be alive, to live through, being an infant, a young child, an older adult, young adult, older adult, a fully formed adult, mm-hmm. and so on. The odds of all those things happening are so small. And to have that deep reflection on, well, what am I going to do with my life? What impact am I going to have? Being a man for others, in my case, how can I help people? What skills, what experiences, what lessons have I got to teach people? Mm-hmm. How can I help other people? So my Ikigai is driving a world where you design, build and live your most remarkable life. Wow. That is my Ikigai. So I became very clear on that not that long ago, mm-hmm. but it really helps inform the decisions I make with what I get involved and don't get involved with. Mm-hmm. So I can pretty quickly, it's such a great guiding light for you to actually be really crystal clear. And one of the very first thing that I do with some of the programs that I run is I help people work out what their Ikigai is. Mm. It's a big question. And it really goes to, well, who am I? Who do I want to be? Yes. And that is a big question. It's a short question, but it actually leads to a lot of reflection, and it is philosophical, but it's also practical. So if people are struggling with it, who do I want to be? What do I want to be? What do I want to do? What do I want to have? I reckon in that order, that's a pretty good way. And that's a Zig Ziglar concept.
Be, do, have.
Be, do, have. And I didn't learn about it because of Zig Ziglar. Although I have read many Zig Ziglar books,
Yeah.
I've learned about it because of the 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss.
Oh, yeah.
I read that he has utilised that concept when he was a very young man. He went on not an excursion, but he went and lived in Paris for I think it was about 6 months. And he asked himself those questions. What do I want to be? What do I want to have? What do I want to do? And he became really clear on those 3 questions, came up with a list with each of them. And one of the concepts he had when he did that was, I want to have a flexible lifestyle. It was one of his big points that he wanted to achieve. And he designed the concept of being able to have a nomadic life. So to be able to live around the world in different cities, rent a place for 3 to 6 months, try living in some of the best cities around the world. I love that book. It's another great book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Some of the principles there are great.
So these are the things, like you get to see this as a real life insight. Like this is your reality sometimes, right? When you're planning a succession thing,
Yep.
like people are seeing this as a series,
Yes.
right? And they're entertained and they're like wowed and they're all that kind of thing. You get to see this in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason why they're in this prickly situations is because they're unable to have these prickly conversations.
Yep.
Right, initially.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily unable. They're unwilling.
Unwilling.
Sometimes unable, but usually unwilling.
What are some practical tools, right, that you've seen or that you can share with the audience? Maybe they've going through a succession or they're thinking about going through this, right?
Yep.
And so, obviously the next thing before hiring you, right? What are some practical tools that you can help them start with?
Being prepared to have the discussion.
Right.
So it's a bit like you said before about, putting your hand up and saying, I've got a problem.
Okay.
That's the first step, I think, is to say we should have this discussion.
Yes.
My biggest tip when talking about succession is always use someone independent to help you. Okay. Because if you sit down as a family, the odds are it may not go well. I mean, the odds
are literally flying everywhere, vases, cups.
Look, there are exceptions to every situation, but the odds are it won't go well. So whether it be a family friend, I mean, we're professional, so we charge a fee for this, but there may be someone in your life who could play that role. It doesn't have to be a mediating role per se, but someone who's prepared to facilitate a discussion.
Right.
So there's a few things. I think admitting the fact that you need to have the discussion is pretty important, and maybe agree. You don't have to talk about the topic, but can we all agree that this is something that is worthwhile for us to talk about and deal with?
Yes.
And you need buy-in.
Yes.
And then, all right, so if it is everybody open to the concept of having a discussion facilitated by someone that we all agree on being the facilitator?
Yes.
And if you can get that buy-in as well, then you can, put some thought into who that person might be. And it could be someone who isn't necessarily a professional, but can still play an independent role. It's really important that person, could be more than one person, but say it's one person, it's really important that they have an independence about them. So they can be independent. And the other thing that I reckon is a big tip is, so one thing that we do is we will, so take an example of a family, because that's probably the best example.
Yep.
So let's describe the family as a case study. Mum and dad, 3 kids, all married. So mum and dad, 3 kids, all married. And let's say there are no grandkids yet.
Right.
That makes it easier as an example. So what we would typically do is we would meet, normally there's someone driving it. It's normally mum or dad, or maybe both of them together, who have some kind of need to address succession, that will meet with us and we'll flesh out the various issues and so on. And then what we would typically do is our process would be, we'll let them know the way that we'd go about things and what we charge to do it and so on. But one of the things that we're big on is meeting with each of the parties, so-called party. So we would meet with mum and dad
Right.
together.
Yes.
We would meet with each of the siblings,
Yes.
and we would encourage that meeting with each sibling to be with their partner, their spouse.
Right.
Said they're all married.
Yes.
We'd meet with their spouse. Why? Because those spouses will have a view, and those spouses are better off seeing the process firsthand,
Yeah.
not being told about it third hand.
Yes.
Okay? Because things get lost in translation.
Yes.
And, you know, there's a difference between perception and perspective.
Yes.
Perception is what you see. Perspective is putting yourself in the other person's shoes and trying to understand what they think and why they think that way.
Right.
And even though you might be siblings,
Yes.
you can have wildly different views on things
Yes.
despite sharing a lot of genetics together.
Yes.
So that's one thing. I think another thing that's important is we never attribute anything that is said in those meetings to any particular individual.
Right.
We talk about themes, we talk about concepts, we
Yes.
talk about matters that have been raised,
Mhm.
and people can guess who might have raised things, but we'll never attribute something to an individual.
Yes.
We're better off just dealing with the issues that need to be sorted out,
Mhm.
and then we find out what everybody thinks about them. And so there might be a time when we come back again all together,
Mhm.
and we deliver the report all together and so on. Like when, I don't know whether I've said this before, but we don't do legal or accounting or tax or wealth or
Right.
finance or
Yes.
M&A. We just do succession. We just do the human side of succession.
Right. Okay, cool. So tell us more about the generational wealth from one generation to another.
Yeah. Well, there are numerous challenges with it, but also with challenge comes opportunity. So, look, the figures on it differ a bit, but I can throw out a figure of, let's call it circa $5 trillion will transfer from one generation to the next, or one generation to the next, in the next, call it 20 years.
Wow.
Could even be less, could be 15 years.
In Australia.
In Australia.
Wow.
So globally, way more.
Yes.
But let's just focus on Australia. So there are various challenges. And if you're generation one,
Yes.
you've got the wealth,
Yes.
or the majority of the wealth.
Yes.
I think some of the questions that you ask yourself naturally are, I don't want to spoil my kids. You know, we, in some cases, made wealth,
Mhm.
and our kids have grown up. They know they're in a wealthy family,
Yes.
or they know you're in a family that's fairly well off.
Right.
Don't want to spoil them.
Yes.
And that's a legitimate question to ask
Yes.
themselves. So how do we walk that fine line between not spoiling them, but also being generous and kind and loving and not breeding entitlement and spoiling them, right? That's a fine line.
Yeah.
And there are all kinds of theories on that, and every family, can approach it the way that suits them, and we would guide them down that pathway too.
Sure.
I think Warren Buffett's got a good philosophy about it, which is I want to give them enough that they're not going to be destitute, but it's not too much that they're going to not have to work or not have to contribute to society, I think is the way he puts it. So we would always keep those sorts of things in place and at the front of our minds as we're dealing with families with this kind of issue. And it is an issue. I know it's a first world issue, but it's a big issue. It's a $5 trillion issue. And then, of course, when you're the generation two and you're the receiver or the inheritor, it's thinking about what's going through their mind. Is the transfer best to happen when mum and dad are no longer around? Or is it better to happen for me, being generation two, when I can use some of that money maybe to educate my children, generation three, or get that great house that I've always wanted to live in, our forever house.
Yes. Have
a lifestyle that maybe when mum and dad were young they didn't have, or when they were at my age, maybe they built a business or what have you. So it's working through those inevitable kinds of questions. And there are some families that have questions that are more pertinent to them through various circumstances. And an example might be, how do we treat a sibling that has special needs, for example? And we've had experience with that. And with all of these issues, there's always a way through. When is the best time to approach succession? Yesterday. But the second best time is today, when hopefully things are good amongst the family members, or if it's a business partnership, same thing. And when you've got time, you don't want to be rushing, and you don't want there to be issues that are already starting to bubble up, or worse, on fire. So when things are good, when you've got time, you can work your way through this methodically, sensibly, reasonably, rationally, and get to a conclusion that makes sense, that everybody can live with. It doesn't have to shoot the lights out for one person. In fact, if it does, probably haven't got it right. I think it needs to be fair and reasonable, and everybody can live with it.
When you're seeing families transfer the wealth, right, whether it's, let's say it's first generation to the second, right, they've made their, multi-millions or billions of dollars, right? What problems do you see when it is transferred into the second generation? And then the problems again from second generation to third generation. Do you see that it gets diluted in them being able to actually hold it? Is that a legitimate problem? Because the way that Succession series shows is that the first, there's a saying, the first generation builds, makes it, the second generation spends it, third generation loses it.
Yeah, that's the saying. And maybe because often when the wealth was built, it's a high risk, high return situation.
Right.
It's a business that was started. Business can be high risk, but it also can be very high return. And hence, when there is, a good amount of wealth that's been accumulated, it's often been because someone in the family, a generation or two or three or four ago, did something remarkable, or did something that was aggressive, risky, smart, considered, and all those things.
You've seen a lot of businesses, and you've seen a lot of businesses that have not only like a solo partnership, working by themselves, but they've got partnerships. They've got a dual partnership. What are some of the prickly stuff that you've seen that allows a business to fall apart with businesses that have two founders?
Well, what I've always said to business owners that I've worked with over the journey, and just business owners that you interact with maybe socially, friends and so on, is the business partnership always ends. Every business partnership ends. It's just a matter of what happens first. So one of them will die, or one of them might have a medical episode and they can't work in the business anymore, or they don't want to work in the business anymore because of the medical episode, or there'll be some change in appetite from one or more of the business partners in terms of staying in that industry, or that particular company, or that particular partnership. And what I used to say, in the old days in the wealth management business that we had, Time Advice, I used to say, some of these exits we can insure for. We can actually take out life insurance in case you die, and we can put what's called a buy-sell agreement in place, which is a legal agreement. So let's say you and I are in business, and I die. Let's pick on me. So we both have. So let's say the business is worth $2 million, and it's 50% each ownership. So we own half each. So my part of the business is worth $1 million. So is yours. So we take out $1 million life insurance policy on each of our lives. And sadly, I've passed away. So what happens is the buy-sell agreement kicks into action. You get my shares, and Anna, my wife, gets the $1 million life insurance payout. So she gets the value of my shares paid for by the life insurance. She's very sad because I'm no longer alive, but it's very clean between it's very clean between my estate and you and your family. It's what should be clean. If you do that properly, that's how you can do that. The other reasons for a business partnership ceasing, you can still plan for. You can still have, that's where you have a shareholders agreement. And you can list all the things that could lead to the partnership breaking up, and how you're going to handle it. So that's where you get. So that's the decision-making stuff that you can come up with yourselves.
Yes.
And then you get the lawyer to document what you want in the shareholders agreement.
Nice.
So that's a little bit technical, but basically you agree on all the things that could happen, and you literally list them all out, and you may need an expert to help you work out what all of those things are. And then you get the lawyers to document what you've agreed at the end of the process.
Nice.
So that's how you cover that.
Cool. Nice.
There are great stories about people who started in the old-fashioned mailroom, or started in the typing pool. I'm giving old-fashioned terms here, but the person who started at the bottom, technically the bottom, and worked their way up, they always gain a lot of respect. And I've seen some great succession examples, where families have said to daughter or son or nephew or niece, you're going to start at the coalface of this business, and you're going to get to know every department in the business. Because not only will you learn about how all of those departments operate, but you'll get to meet all the people. And they'll see that you're prepared to change the tyre on the car, you're prepared to bang nails into the fence, you're prepared to get your hands dirty and vacuum the floor, you're prepared to clean the toilets, you're prepared to serve the workers lunch or go to the cafe and buy coffees for people. Whatever it is, you work your way up, you gain their respect. So there are things like that, I think, that maybe they sound really obvious, but a lot of people overlook them because we own the business, and no, my daughter's going to be the CEO after me, and she's going to start as general manager of sales, but she hasn't sold anything ever. So examples like that might be a wild example, but you see it. And so dealing at a practical level with things like that helps achieve the purpose of the business, which really should be the most important thing.
All right. So many founders struggle to let go of their business. What do you think succession planning is often delayed? Why do you think succession planning is often delayed until it becomes urgent?
Because too often families and business owners ignore the elephant in the room, and they don't want to have the difficult conversation, even though they know they should, and everyone will be better off as a result.
Australia is entering one of the biggest wealth transfer periods in history. What are families and business owners still underestimating about this transition?
I think the time that it will take, it's not a quick process, but it's a really worthwhile process. And if done properly, with independent guidance, they can achieve a great result, and there's no need to rush it. You're better off taking your time and getting it right than rushing it and risking things blowing up.
What are the most common mistakes family businesses make when preparing the next generation to take over?
Well, I talked about this before, but putting people into roles that they're not ready for, favouring blood relatives over non-family members.
Ooh, I love that one.
And I think sometimes making quick decisions that aren't thought all the way through, and communicating what might be best with teams and leaders within the business, family members or not.
You talk a lot about accountability and training. What does accountability actually look like for a CEO and high-performing execs?
Well, drawing on my sporting experience, accountability looks like someone actually holding the torch to your feet and making sure that you do what you commit to. So if something is important for you to achieve, for someone in your life, I mean, I train people in accountability partnerships, but for somebody in your life to actually hold you to account and say, Karim, you said this was important to you, and as a result, you were going to do these things and you haven't done them. Is it important to you or not? And having that direct and robust conversation.
How important is emotional intelligence in succession and inheritance discussions?
It's so incredibly important. It's not funny. Yes, the reading of cues, watching body language. When someone says this, what do they mean? Is there a hidden meaning that's behind what they're saying? Now, when they said this, did they really mean it? Yeah, emotional intelligence is arguably the most important skill.
You've advised people in both business and sports. Do elite athletes and entrepreneurs share similar personality traits?
Absolutely they do, because they're risk takers. So an entrepreneur is willing to risk things
Yes.
for a greater return than someone who's
Yes.
not. And similarly, athletes are always taking risks.
And the ones that do it right, what do they do well?
Well, firstly, they're prepared to take a bigger risk than the average person. They're disciplined.
Yes.
They're committed. I mean, they're prepared to put themselves out there, whether it be on LinkedIn, whether it be on a football field, whether it be on an athletics track,
Yes.
whether it be in a motor vehicle, whether it be in a boardroom, whether it be on the Australian Stock Exchange. They're prepared to put their hand up and say, I'm trying to achieve this.
What would you say about their appetite for failure?
They're all prepared to fail. And you fail multiple times, sometimes over multiple days. So that willingness to, failure, there's a great quote. Chris Fagan says, Chris Fagan went through a period where he said, we either win or we learn. And I think that's a great reframing of failure. So it's not a loss, it's not a fail, it's learning, it's a learning opportunity.
Social media has changed how leaders build influence. Do you think executives these days and founders are doing enough to build personal brands online?
As a general rule, no. I'd say some are doing it brilliantly. Most do a bit. And I'd say some don't do any. But yeah, so my answer would be, on the whole, no. There's plenty more they could do and would benefit from.
What advice would you give entrepreneurs who are obsessed with growth but neglect long-term planning and governance?
It's fraud.
It's a scam.
If governance is so important,
Yes.
long-term planning is important. And look, growth for growth's sake is a real trap. Because I'll go back to what I was saying before. What is the purpose? Why do you want so much growth? And the other thing I think also that often gets overlooked is you can get more growth and be less profitable. And that may be a strategy, but is it really what you want? And does it deliver on your purpose? If you keep asking yourself, what is my purpose? Does this growth plan deliver that? That's fine. But if it doesn't, you need to rethink it.
In your view, what will define the next generation of successful Australian business leaders?
I think their willingness to empower leaders below them, currently below them, and bring them up through the ranks. So it's the people that you lead and teach. It's what they achieve that can be your greatest achievement.
You work closely with high achievers. How do top performers avoid burnout while maintaining ambition?
Combination of things, but time away from the office, time with family, time with friends. I'm big on exercise. To me, exercise is not only is it a no-brainer, it's a non-negotiable. The more I exercise, the better life goes for me.
Yes.
So I think I've touched before on journaling. I think journaling is a great tool. It's a great way to get those thoughts out of your head. And so take what is in your subconscious and make them conscious and deal with them. So a combination of those things.
Looking back on your career, what has been the most valuable investment you've made in yourself?
Personal development. So I've touched on it before, but I have bought, read, summarised, studied, gifted multiple books across a range of topics, but typically in the personal development.
What are your top three that you've gifted?
I've gifted Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Not so much recently, but that was one I've gifted to many people and suggested and recommended.
Right.
I think more recently, Give and Take by Adam Grant is one that I'm just big on giving.
Yes.
But what comes out in that book is you've got to be careful. If you're a natural giver,
yes,
you have to be careful, because if you're not careful, you just give, and there's nothing for you.
You burn out.
You burn out. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So you realise you've got to temper your giving to be able to help as many people as you can. Because if you don't, you burn out, and you're not helping yourself, let alone anyone else.
I love that.
So you got to lead yourself to be able to lead others.
Yeah.
And the other book that I've already mentioned is I love Ikigai.
Yes.
Because I think that's great for the purpose bit. But I'll throw in a fourth, an extra bonus one. I love the E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Ooh.
So the E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth. And the myth is you start a business.
Yeah.
So the classic is, in the book, there's a great example of the baker.
Yes.
A female opens up a bakery shop. She's a fantastic pastry chef and great cook. So she opens up this bakery shop and it's so successful. But then she gets buried in accounting and rent and staffing and all the elements of the business. She loves baking the pastries. And it's all about to have a business. The theme of the book is you think you've got a business, you don't. You have a job, you happen to employ yourself.
Yes.
You only have a business if you can sell it. And I saw Gerber speak live and he absolutely blew me away. He blew me away. Talking exactly about that concept of, if you're a true business owner, you've got to build something that's saleable. And, having gone through the process of selling a business and starting one from scratch, I've had that experience. And his advice from that book, it's a bit of a classic now. I reckon it was written in the early 90s. And there are a few phrases out of that book that have become vernacular. So, for example, what's an example? Work on the business, not in the business.
Yes.
That was one of the lines from the E-Myth. There are multiple others.
Right.
But it's well worth a read.
People know you for your football brilliance, right?
You're overstating it.
At Hawthorn, specifically, and then you've gone into into the role of being in the board, being the president, and you've also spoken about the succession and that part and that arm of the business, which you obviously know very well, and you've shared some really good insight. If people want to learn more about you and work with you, and do you have anything coming up, that people can come along to, can learn from you? So
I've got another arm to my business interests, which is I call Elite Performance Advisory.
Right.
So I've got a few programs that I deliver.
Yes.
And I do have one coming up. So it's called the 48-hour residential intensive. I'm holding it in Noosa.
Yes.
So it's a small cohort deliberately.
Right. Yes.
Because I want everybody to get amazing value from it.
Yes.
So it's designed to be small. I'll end up pairing people up into accountability partnerships.
What are they getting out of it? What are they learning?
So we're going to be spending time, I talked about that wheel of life earlier.
Yes.
It's about spending time away from the noise of everyday life.
Yes.
To work on purpose.
Yes.
And what you want your life to look like and the various aspects of it.
Yes. And
planning it, designing it, and putting the plan in. But then also, I'm going to partner people up with someone and train them how to hold each other accountable and give them use of tool that we've developed to help people actually hold each other accountable.
Beautiful.
So that one happens in Noosa.
Yes.
The 21st to the 23rd of June.
Okay.
So I'm not sure when this goes to air, but we do have a few spots left and they're booking up fast now.
How do people get in touch with you? Do you have a website that they can...
I have an easy website. So it's myname.com.au, andygowers.com.au.
Is there anything else that you're wanting to share that we haven't highlighted? I know that we've been talking. Anything that you can share, any wisdom that has really inspired you, that has changed your life? Is there anything that you...
Look, we've had a wide-ranging and fabulous discussion. I've enjoyed it so much, Karim.
Yeah.
My main message to people, if I was on my deathbed and I only had a minute with someone,
Yeah.
and they said, "What's your biggest tip in life?" I'd say, work out what your purpose is, so ikigai,
Yeah.
and then work out how that applies to helping as many people as you can. So whatever that looks like. Now, when I'm on my deathbed, AI will be amazing. You'll be able to get lots of stuff done and get lots of help in a less labour-intensive way than you can now, probably.
Yes.
But I think that's such a great privilege, being able to help people and be a person for others.
Right.
And it's just the greatest gift is to help someone else and see the joy that it creates in them, and to witness that, and to have some kind of part in that. They do it, but to have had an influence on that, I think, is just the greatest joy. So that'd be my final sign off.
I want you to think about that 21-year-old boy, that he was feeling like he was in the dumps and he was at the fork of the road, right?
Yep. I can go straight back there.
What message would you like to go back and tell him before he's made that decision? If you were to go back and visit that 21-year-old Andy, what would you like to tell him?
I would tell him, look forward now, not back. So I spent too much time looking back at what I'd missed out on, in particular, those 2 premierships I talked about, and some other things, but mostly that. I spent too much time looking back and regretting things I'd missed out on, rather than planning what I was going to be up to into the future. So 21-year-old me, that's the advice I would have given him. But for anyone listening and or watching this, my advice to you is, whatever has happened in the past, draw the line in the sand. It's time to start to plan what's going to happen in the future. What you want your future to look like. Not what you regret about your past, what you want your future to look like. I reckon that's the biggest thing I'd say to my 21-year-old self. In order to, I'll go back to the point I made before about what's the purpose of the organisation. And if the purpose of the organisation is to be fulfilled, there'll be things below that sort of make sense or they don't. And I think you've got to get the best person in the roles and make sure that, that's sacrosanct. You've got to get the best people in the role. If it's family, great, and that's romantic. But the left brain of me says, well, you've got to get the best person, whether it's family or not. My right brain says, oh, I love the fact that it's my daughter or my nephew or what have you.
Yeah.
And that could be good too. And don't worry, there's plenty. Romanticism in business is a nice thing, as long as it delivers the results we're after, and as long as that is in keeping with our purpose, then we can walk that fine line. And there's the occasional example, well, quite a few actually, where people say, look, I know I should put something else in that role, but I'm happy to do it for this reason. And sometimes you see, particularly in small business, they will stick with someone who's a non-family member, who's been with them for a long time, because they're loyal, they're trustworthy, and they've been around for a long time. So they reward them. They could make more profit, but for them, it goes back to the purpose. The purpose of the business might be to whatever. That person, I probably could get a better person in that role, but I don't care. I'm happy to pay him or her overs. I want to reward them, and I want this to be a great place to work. I'm not so fussed. We're still making good money. I'm not so fussed about making an extra 300 grand or whatever it is. I'd rather look after my people and everyone be happy and we roll on.
But why is what you're doing so important? Like, elite performance can be very general. Why is what you're doing and what you're teaching so important?
Because I feel a responsibility to help people, because I had the benefit at the age of 21 or even younger. I got access to the best team. I didn't, not only did I not pay for it, I got paid to perform. And the people that were put around me were paid by the club
Yes.
to help me and all my teammates perform on the field.
Right.
So whatever part of my brain or my body that needed help
Yes.
so that I could perform at an elite level,
Mm-hmm.
I got access to. And so I've been working towards this for a long time. How can I provide a service and maybe some products that helps non-elite athletes, but in some cases elite athletes as well, get access to the right information, the right training, the right guides, the right programs, so that they can have elite performance in whatever field they operate in, but across their whole life. That's my motivation.
I love that. Because when people think elite performance, they think doing drills, waking up and doing burpees, and all that kind of thing. But the thing that really changed your life in performance, right, is not that.
No, it's not. It was a mindset. So it's up to anyone to adopt or not adopt what they use and what they do and how they talk to themselves. And there are so many elements to it. But the basics are, what's your purpose? And the other big thing is having a good team around you and what that looks like. So one part of the team can be an accountability partner. And again, I've had the advantage of being held very accountable by typically coaches. But a coach to player relationship is very different from an accountability partnership, because they're on the same level technically in accountability partners.
Yes.
Whereas the coach can yell and scream at a player and not just hold them accountable. I mean, the career of that player is to some degree in the hands of that coach. I mean, I would argue it's more in the hands of the player.
Right.
But that relationship is very different because the coach is clearly superior. The coach can sack you. The coach can drop you. The coach can say, you're not playing here anymore, mate. Whereas an accountability partnership is more, well, it is. We're on the same level.
Yes.
And I really want to help you, but I'm going to hold the torch to your feet every now and then. Are you comfortable with that? It needs to be respectful.
Yes.
It needs to be, I need to have your best interests at heart. Now that needs to be clear. But the other thing is, we need to be able to communicate openly with each other. So we need to trust each other.
Do you think in elite sport it's something that's unutilized, where they train for the skill and they do the drills? But from what you're talking about, these are like mindset things that is not really spoken about much. Do you find that in sport that it can be done better, especially at the leadership level?
I think it's done pretty well in sport, I have to say. I think it can be done much better in business. I think business can learn a lot from elite sport so I don't see much work going on in the business world when it comes to, I guess, what I would describe as the mental approach to things.
And is that only successful clubs that do it well?
No, I think all clubs are pretty good at it. I'm talking about the AFL now. I mean, you see the odd exception. I mean, there was the famous one in the Olympics when we had a female rower, nicknamed Laydown Sally. I've forgotten her surname. Yeah. But she stopped rowing in Olympic. I don't know that it was a final. Maybe it was a final. Anyway, a big race, the biggest race you could probably go in is an Olympic rowing final. And she stopped rowing. Now, at some point, there must have been a breakdown in the either the assessment of her psychologically, or something went wrong for that to happen in a big race like that for her, but also the team. So, but I think sport does it pretty well.
Okay. Yeah. And taking those good traits and those good lessons, we can move them into business.
Yeah, I think there are some really good opportunities for business teams, but also individuals. So I don't work with teams, I work with individuals. I mean, I end up pairing them up into accountability partnerships. In my old in the marketing course that I did, we always were taught, start with your objective. What are you trying to achieve? look at the strategies to achieve your objective or objectives, and then what are the tactics that deliver the strategies?
Right.
So objective, strategies, tactics.
Yes.
And I think, well, from experience and observation, I think in our lives as human beings, not many of us have enough objectives. We're buried in tactics. I should run around the block because I'm feeling like I'm a bit unhealthy. And we go through waves of what I would describe as when we're feeling motivated.
Yes.
If you rely on motivation, it's very short term. Whereas if you build habits,
Yes.
but habits need to be driven by an objective and a strategy.
Yes.
So I see too many people just meandering and wandering through life buried in tactics.
Yes.
They don't spend anywhere near enough time at the objective level. And to me, that's where you should spend a lot of your time to start with, and not enough of us do it.
I love that. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, Karim.
Thank you.
Thank you.